Hi guys, welcome to my channel. Today I'm gonna paint some wintry scenes with like a little wink of Halloween and horror because I really love it. And while I do that, I will tell you guys some scary stories I found on the internet. With that being said, let's go to the video. An unexpected Maggie. Donde Esta Santa Claus was blaring on the radio as Gary crossed over the state lines into somewhere. He lost track of where he was hours ago. Somewhere mid-east? He was driving back east for Christmas, too cheap to fly. He thought he'd take the opportunity to see America, like the real America. Turns out, most of the real America was lots of nothing, next to a lots of scenic nothing. No cars on the highway except for him. It was late. Dashboard display said it was 2:70 a.m. Taking off his eyes of the endless stretch of highway, he glanced up at the sky. For the briefest moments he swore the moon looked green. Squinting he could see it was not. Just a big old circle in the sky made of cheese, like they always said. It's amazing what you think you see after 17 hours on the road. He smeared his open palm down his face, trying to get the sleep out of his eyes by force. The husk of 5-hour energy containers littered the passenger seat. He instinctively reached for the other pick-me-up, but swore as he remembered he sucked dry the last one about 8 miles back. He needed to find somewhere to crash down for a few hours. He definitely needed to gas up, but maybe grab some food even. The sign he flew by offering everything he was looking for. Plus the biggest vacuum in the continental US was just too good of an offer to pass up. Pulling into town, he coasted over to the gas station. The prices were ridiculous, but Gary didn't exactly have the wealth of options. They must have gotten greedy from all the tourism the vacuum brought in. He had passed the celebrated home appliance as he made his way into town. Green and red lights shining on his little placard. Couldn't have been taller than 6 feet. The 8th wonder of the world, they said. As it stood outside his Honda in the bitter cold, Gary saw a neon glow of a sign promising donuts, burritos and hot dogs. His stomach rumbled. Between sleep and hunger, it looked like hunger was gonna come out on top. He looked as he rubbed his hands together for warmth, amidst the stuttering shops and grey building that made up the small town. He could see a diner across the street. Whatever they got had to be better than he assumed the day-old hot dogs. The pump stopped with a loud glub. He placed it back in the gas-soaked cradle, inserted his card, tossed the receipt and drove the 100 yards over for the dinner. He saw a cop car parked out in the front. A middle-aged policeman appeared to be dozing inside, half-finished Twix bar in hand. Guess the donuts at the gas station weren't up to snuff, Gary thought. As he slammed the car shut and he pushed open the metallic sleek entrance to the diner. The bell above the door jingled brightly, alerting the diner patrons of a new arrival. 5 or 6 other people were scattered throughout the munching on curly fries and slurping milkshakes. Not exactly a happening spot. Gary walked over to the counter and took a seat on one of the round, bright red stools. In moments he was greeted by a stocky man in a paper chef's hat. It was green. Weren't they always white? Gary was staring at the hat for a few seconds before the man spoke. What do I get you, pal? He tossed Gary a menu and started wiping his hands on his already filthy apron. Gary didn't bother looking at the menu. Double bacon, cheeseburger, mid-rare, curly fries, 2 waffles and a Coke in the largest glass you got. The chef nodded in approval. You got it, chief. About 15 minutes. After a few seconds, the chef plopped a football-sized glass in front of Gary, completely shielding himself from view. It was large and plastic. The container itself seemed to be shimmy and undulated with an absurd amount of soda, and the ice cubes floating around inside. Gary shifted the glass slightly so he could see the chef and thank him. No problem, bud. The chef casually dropped a straw in front of Gary. Gary ripped off the paper sleeve of the straw and dropped it into the glass. It disappeared instantly, vanishing under all those dark bubbles. Leaning over the side of the counter, Gary grabbed a few more straws. He finished out the drowning one and fashioned them all into one elephant trunk of a device, dropped them into the drink and greedily began to suck it down. He didn't realize how thirsty he was until that ice-cold, fizzy lifeblood was fluiding to his system. He was so distracted in the caffeine ecstasy, he didn't notice the presence behind him. "You wanna see the first child of Christ?" the voice said. "Who? What?" Gary sputtered, almost falling off his stool. "The Christ child. You wanna see him?" The man was dressed in an army surplus jacket. It was riddled with stains that drew attention away from the greasy hair that hung about his face in stark patches. Regaining his composure on an empty seat, Gary responded to the man. "Look, buddy, I'm not an idiot. He is born on Christmas, not before. If you want to run a scam, at least get the facts right. If you're looking for a handout, I don't have any cash. I've got waffles coming soon. If you want some, they're yours. Just leave me alone." The dirty man stared at Gary, no erection in his eyes. The other patrons of the diner looked like they were doing their best to ignore the entire scene. The grill chef shared a glance with Gary and rolled his eyes, but the dirty man stood like a statue, staring at Gary, unblinking. It was impossible for Gary to ignore this dirty man's presence. Finally, he swiveled his diner stool slightly in the dirty man's direction. "Alright, I'll bite. What is it? You're trying to unload some Christmas cards before the season's over? You got a dog in a box over there with a halo stapled to its head? What is this angel you're talking about?" Through his filthy teeth, the man smiled. "No angel. You come out, I show the Christ, and if you don't believe me 100%, that he is what I say he is, pay for your dinner." Gary considered the prospect of a free and clear dinner. It would cap off his stay in Nowhereville and give him a great story for Christmas dinner. "Well, lead on, champ." Gary turned to the cock as he got off his chair. "I take the check when I get back. This gentleman has generously agreed to take care—" "Not yet." The dirty man cut him out of his sentence with an unblinking stare. "Okie dokie then, let's go." The dirty man led him out the doors of the diner into a crisp grey winter night. They walked 2 blocks down the street, passing the empty and shuttered shop's windows. "It's right down here," the dirty man pointed in the direction of an alleyway. Gary stopped and peered down the filthy, empty passage, shadows dancing in the trash and discarded pizza boxes. He had a few inches and at least a 50 pounds on this guy if he tried to pull anything. He could have a gun or a knife, but he didn't think so. It didn't look like this twitchy type, but he didn't want to look stupid. "Right ahead, bud. This is a follow the leader situation." The dirty man's smile never left its face. "Sure, man." In the dim illumination of the corner streetlight, they navigated the alley. The dirty man led him into a small box at the far side. Almost touching the brick dead end, he pointed. "In there, open it up, and you'll see." Gary maneuvered around the box so he had his back to the wall and facing the dirty man. He looked down at the small, slightly damp-looking cardboard and smiled. "Free dinner," and then backed on the road. He opened the flaps and looked inside. He stared silently. After a minute or two, he reached in and pulled out something. It was a small shape, wrapped in a bundle of torn clothes. Pulling back the cloth covering, it revealed a child with the most striking and beautiful green eyes he'd ever seen. As he held the child, Gary felt like he was plunged into an ocean of calm. Every fear, every worry he ever had fled like shadows in the sunlight. With tears welling in his eyes, he turned to the man who had extended an invitation to meet his savior. "You know, I never believed it. It just didn't make sense to me, but now..." He looked down at the smiling child. "This makes sense." An energized look crossed Gary's face. "Who else can we tell? Everybody has to know about this. He was cut off by a large set of jaws that clamped down and tore out his throat. In pain and panic, he dropped the child. Its tiny mouth was stained with crimson. Faster than he thought was possible, Arms reached out to catch the baby, arms belonging to the dirty man, sliding down the brick wall of the alley. Gary ripped off his sleeve and stuffed it against the spurting open wound on his neck in a desperate attempt to staunch the bleeding. That's not the Christ child, he choked out, struggling to stay conscious. The dirty man stroked the light tufts of hair on the baby's head as he spoke. Oh, it's the Christ child, all right. He mentioned the opening of the alleyway, the dinner patrons, the grilled chef, even the sleeping cop he had passed part in his patrol car. They were all gathered there, crowding out the light, all staring with their brilliant green eyes. It's not just Christ child, it's ours. The dirty man smiled his dead-eyed smile. And every Christ child needs its gifts. Thank you for bringing the first gift. The last thing Gary ever saw was the dirty man lowering that thing, wrapped in swallow clothes down to his level. It gurgled as its tiny face split apart to make way for endless rows of shiny, red teeth. So, after hearing this story, I have another one for you guys. One about a very chilling Christmas supper with your girlfriend's family. What's supposed to be very family friendly, like nice and warm, didn't end up as nice as you would think it would be. A very special Christmas supper. The first time you meet your girlfriend's family is extremely important. Maybe they will become family to you too. You have to be funny, charming, but not too funny or too charming. It seems unnatural otherwise. You don't have to want to be a faker or a bootlegger. When I was about to meet Mabel's family, I couldn't stop feeling anxious. At 25, I had dated a lot of people, and I knew she was a woman of my dreams. She was beautiful, successful, and sweet, the most supportive and generous person I had ever met in my life. We had been together for a little over 2 years, and I felt at ease with her. Erwin's younger sister and older brother all used to live in another country, so we didn't get the chance to meet. We talked over Skype, FaceTime a few times. At least they seemed to not dislike me, but you know that's not the same thing. They were already at Mabel's spacious modern house in suburbia when I arrived on Christmas Eve. I cursed myself for not being the first one there, but no one seemed to mind. Hi, Yona. Her father Richard opened the door for me, enthusiastically shook my hand, and then decided it wasn't enough, and half hugged me, patting me in the back. Such a businessman. Don't worry, Mabel told us you had to work today. His warmness both shocked and relieved me. For a man in his 50s, I assume, he was incredibly handsome. Richard had auburn hair like Mabel, and was tall and fit. He guided me to the other family members in the living room. Martha, Bernie, Fred, and the famous Jonah looked even better in person, am I right? He strongly patted me in the back again. Look how good you look in this shirt. Martha, Mabel's mother, was overjoyed to see me and landed me 2 kisses in my cheek. She didn't look 1 day older than 35, and just like her daughter, she smelled really good. After hugging me, she screamed in a general direction of the kitchen, "This one is a keeper map!" Next was the little sister. Bernie was around 15, blonde with a face that looked carved on white marble, like her mother. She rolled her eyes with a smile, and signed that she thought her parents were too much, but in an affectionate way, and extended her hand. "Nice to meet you, Yona. I hope you enjoy yourself today." Last but not least was Fred. He was one of the best looking men I've ever met. Richard and Martha complimented me, and I know I look alright, but compared to him, I'm more akin to a trash bag. He was tall, strong, both in arms and legs. His trousers and button-up shirt looked amazing on him, fitting him perfectly, like he was some Armani model. His hair was shiny and his teeth were perfectly aligned. Not ashamed to say that. If I wasn't exclusively into chicks, I would fall for him. None of them looked this good in video, but I dismissed it as a quality of the frontal camera or webcam. That explains why they complimented me. I was probably fucking ugly in front of their call. "Please have a sit, son." Richard pointed me to a chair. "Mabel will change and will be here in a second." The 5 of us had a great time talking, shifting between a lot of entertaining topics and getting to know each other. Every single one of them was interesting, and I honestly couldn't wait to become their family. Sure, I love my parents, but they are so normal. Around 20 minutes after I started socializing with them, Mabel came downstairs. She was stunning. Her makeup was perfectly done, her hair looked like rubies, her dress was like the wind, and her face was sweeter and prettier than ever. I was truly wonderstruck, and regretted that for a second after meeting her family, I thought she was the least gorgeous person of her kind. I couldn't hold back anymore. I got on my knees in reverse, and straightened myself and proposed. I had been carrying the ring in my pocket for a while waiting to do sometime shortly after I met her parents. Well, it was a little quicker than I expected. Everyone in the room erupted in screams of joy. Mabel empathetically said yes a few times and held me tightly. After a few seconds, the others joined us in a hug. It was a perfect Christmas with the perfect family. I'm glad our family is complete now. Rich's eyes were full of happy tears, and he squeezed my face between his hands, then kissed my left cheek. So, please, let's eat, Bernie asked in a typical impatient teenager tone, but with a note of joy. The tidbits I had earlier were not enough. Sure, sweetie, Johan, let's go to the dinner table. The boys will get the main dish. Martha guided me to the other room. The table was long, filled with side dishes and perfectly set. Rich and Fred soon entered the dining room with an immense plate filled with roasted human? I thought my eyes were deceiving me, but nothing else could have been this size and shape. It looks delicious as always, sis. Bernie was happier than before. Is this, I babbled. A human, Mabel responded, like it was the most natural thing in the world. It was merely a turkey. It actually tastes great roasted if you just adjust the oven temperature. And boy, does she know, Fred added with a smile, staring at the cut meat. The seasoning is amazing too. Upon a better look, I noticed the body belonged to a young male. Bernie greedily ate his first bite, and instantly her beauty and youth became uncanny, almost unbearable. It was like she was glowing with an otherworldly light. Come on, son. Richard gave me a fatherly look. We're beautiful, rich, smart, successful. Who would ever get it without a little ritual here and there, you know? We only need to make it once a year. It's a great cost-benefit, Martha remarked, as she served herself potatoes with the bits of the feet. When I noticed I was staring at her dish, she explained with a smile, I just love to nibble on the bones. And you don't have to be a female virgin. This would be so boring and old. As long as a person is young and beautiful, we can make do. This is some frat boy who tried to force himself on one of my friends, Bernie explained. Well, not on my watch. All their explanations made me consider it all extremely reasonable. Don't you love me? Mabel batted with her lashes, knowing very well that I loved her more than anything in the world. Don't you want to become almost perfect like us? We know damn well a couple that performs rituals together stays together, son, Rachel said with a charming wink. Me and Martha have been together for 40 years, it's guaranteed. As I made up my mind, I didn't answer. I just cut myself a slice of the leg and decided to partake. The next one is a story I found on Reddit. It's about a shadow figure that follows someone, and they feel like they're threatened by it, even though they are a strong believer. So, let's go to that story. So, a few months ago, about 3 a.m., I was near the edge of a woodline, sitting in the yard, thinking about things that were going on in my life. All of a sudden, I looked up from the ground and I saw in front of me what appeared to be like a shadow of a humanoid figure with strange pointed head. And what totally made my blood turn to ice was these long, wispy fingers that came sharp to a point at the end. I was so effing terrified I couldn't turn around to look behind me. I got the distinct feeling that this thing saw that I was in a weak point in my life, and that in my head, almost as something was warning me that this thing was not yet attached to me, but it was trying to do so. And continue in my current life path, it may become stressful and attach itself to me. Thankfully, I have a strong personal relationship with God, and I prayed and asked for His continuous guidance and protection. I haven't seen this thing, but however I feel like sometimes it's watching me in the hall or on another place as well. I also found this story on Reddit. It's about a boy whose father has a farm that is from the 1920s and terrifies him at night. My father owns a 1920s farmhouse in the suburbs. As a child, I have always felt uneasy, and some nights I even recall being scared I was going to be hurt. This was always pushed aside because I was a child. I'm 21 now and I still have never felt comfortable, especially as I am now the only person that lives on the upper floor. Recently I had terrifying nightmares and experiences that chill me to the core. I had multiple dreams about the cat, including seeing eyes looking at me from across the hall. Dreams about voices of a woman, who I presume was to be the spirit that I always thought was feminine. Dark shadows that move around in the room, feeling that someone is staring at you as I try to fall asleep. Even some nights I headed to the couch at 3 a.m. trying to get some sleep at night, just to hear thumping from the empty upstairs and footsteps. In the kitchen behind the living room. The only family who seems to have experienced anything similar is my mom, who is divorced from my dad but maintains a good relationship. As she told me about the lights in the living room turning off and on, and while I haven't seen anything of that sort, it still is so uncomfortable to be and sleep there. I feel absolutely insane. My girlfriend has spent the night here one and got almost no sleep either. I'm not sure if that answers what I'm looking for or what the help I'm seeking, but it just needed to talk about this to someone other than my friends and my partner, who are truly terrified. Well, let's end this one with this one sweet short poem. And after that, it would be really cool if you guys would let me know what you think of this video down in the comments below. Sometimes I walk alone at night. He follows me home, he follows me home. Sometimes he speaks and mumbles and moans. I mimic his tone, repeating his poem. Wraps my hands and leads me to his throne. Forever we roam, forever we roam. He tells me that one day we share one soul, and now I know this is my home. Thank you guys so much for looking at my video and also listening to my scary stories. If you want more of this type of content, then don't hesitate to subscribe to my channel, ring the notification bell, give this video a thumbs up and comment something down below. With that being said guys, I hope you guys have a really nice day and take good care of yourself. With that being said, bye bye guys!